That's a Shame is brought to you by the people who support us over at patreon.com/shamecity.
If you have $1,
$2.
$1 to spare, join us again at patreon.com/shamecity. Please.
The bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Is it recording? Oh, it is. Hello, and welcome to another big and well-produced, importantly, episode of That's a Shame. This very podcast that we're creating with our mouths, and you're doing your part by just allowing it to bounce through your ears into your mind.
Is this a tree falls in the woods thing?
Yeah, is it a podcast if it's...
Nobody listens.
Yeah, I would say it is. Personally,
I'd say it's more of a podcast.
On average, most podcasts are unlistenable garbage, and so yeah, I suppose so. This one, however, only sometimes is that true. I'm Isaac, and who the hell are you?
I'm Declan.
Nice.
And someone in our stream yesterday,
Go on.
or in my stream yesterday, the channels yesterday.
What's the account for that, by the way?
What, twitch.tv/shamecity,
Right, okay.
with just the one Y, as it's always been and always will.
No one would think there'd be more than one.
Was saying, I was just about to listen to TAS.
Oh, yeah.
I was about to start TAS when I got the notification that you'd started streaming, so I came here instead.
Wow.
And I was like...
That's an empire.
And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I went, start, like, the most recent one. I can't even remember what it was. Like, it was Eric Clapton, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went, no, the pilot. And I went, you have to stop right there. Stop right
You can't do that to yourself or us.
I said, I cannot.
Madness.
I simply cannot let you do that. We tried to make a little playlist, didn't we, of good ones on the thing, but then the interface was so annoying that I stopped. But I'm now sort of like got a refreshed energy for that because I can't have people do that to themselves.
And so if people want to introduce a friend to the show, they can go to where it's just shame.city and click on the That's a Shame bit, and you'll see there's a master list of episodes we recommend.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's not all of them.
It's really not important.
Is it this one?
Oh, this one's going to be right up there.
Yes, huge.
It strikes me as one of those things I can't really believe we haven't talked about too much before. I have a feeling we may have mentioned it here or there, or maybe I've spoken to you about it before. But it got brought to my attention, I can't remember where, a couple of weeks back, and I thought that's a good.
You filed it away under shame.
Yeah, I thought that's a good topic for an episode. I've been sat in the other room, sort of
the mouse
for the last couple of days. Yeah, that's right, the mouse room. Not just where we keep our computer mice, but where we keep several live mice.
Here on the third floor of the flat.
And I was trying to find a way of synthesizing this content. And we've done some episodes over the last few weeks, over the last couple of months, where we've had quite the scope of things to bring together.
For sure.
Remember Ancient Giant Tree Truth?
Yeah.
That involved trips to YouTube and blogs.
It's a multimedia
and all of this.
spectacular.
Same with the Nerd Thigh Strangling.
He'll go all over the internet, and I'm always 5 steps behind.
And so unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that the only way I can do this is in a way that isn't really very
Web 3.0.
traditional for TAS. And it's that I just kind of have to read this article.
Okay.
And I'm going to read most of it.
Okay.
Because there's no way I could present this information in a way that could quite capture it in the same way as the reading of this article.
Itself.
Yeah, as it has in its own presentation. I do have auxiliary kind of shoot-offs that we will go to. Don't you fret. But in the most part, we're just going to be reading an article, and it's a Rolling Stone article.
Oh, very cool.
From September 14th, 2015, almost exactly 6 years ago.
Coincidence.
And the title of the article is Terrence Howard's Dangerous Mind.
Okay.
Now, Terrence Howard is this guy right here. You may remember him
as
the guy Don Cheadle replaced in Iron Man. That's what he's perhaps most famed for.
Yes, I do. And then I looked up why he got replaced. And it was like he ended up asking for more money than they would give him. And then they were like, no, we'll get Don Cheadle.
Yeah, so basically he was higher paid than Robert Downey Jr. for the original Iron Man. And then in the second one, they were like, well, we're cutting your role down a lot, so we're going to pay you less money. And he was like, and his agent said no. But we'll come to that. The thing is about Terrence Howard, being cut from Iron Man is the least of his concerns.
Okay.
It is but a triviality in the ocean that is his life.
Fair enough.
And you'll begin to see why. Terrence Howard is standing in front of a mirror inside his extra deluxe penthouse level Chicago apartment, looking at himself looking back. You could say he sees himself as he is today, dressed in a silky long sleeve loungewear top with a scarf circling his neck like right out of the Hollywood handbook for dapper flamboyance. Or as what he has most recently become, a television land megastar for how convincingly he plays the super badass hip-hop record mogul Lucius Lyon on Fox's Empire, this year's most unexpected hit show. Or even as certain others see him, including some ex-wives, as a man given to outbursts of stunning violence and domestic abuse, allegations of which are in part what led him to take the Empire role in the first place. Since they see me as a bad guy, he says, his thinking went, I'm gonna play a bad guy.
Okay.
So he's got a number of ways he can look at himself, and the mirror continues to reflect, as does Howard. Today for me has been about searching out for who I am, he says. We've got all these different faces that want to come out. There's at least 4 just in this moment, with a possible expansion to 432.
Faces?
Yeah.
Cool.
But which one do you let out? Is it the person who's cool that you've mastered? Is it the excited little boy? Now, at this point, my interest was piqued because he reminded me somewhat of yourself.
Well, I don't let my faces in and out. I don't keep them trapped and imprisoned.
No, you just swap them out periodically.
Yeah, like the
sort
very
of rolling
good mayor
around.
In what's it called? Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
Well, he only had like a few, didn't he?
He's only got 2.
Really? Oh,
he's only got very happy, very sad.
Such
I
a
hate
shame.
the start of this article. I don't know if we're including the kind of criticism of the article itself in its scope. But it's not this one that is particularly bad. It's just that need to find some kind of tedious framing device where it's like, he's looking at himself in a mirror and that's it. Like you don't need to then dive into like, but how does he see himself in the mirror? Is he seeing this? Is he seeing that? Or perhaps this third thing that I must include purely for the cadence of what I'm trying to achieve.
For the cadence and for legal reasons.
Yeah, I think it's quite bad.
Yeah, it is. I do think that about some aspects of this article, including that one.
I don't have any particular gripe with it because it's all like this. This is a generic
exactly.
concern.
I'm forgiving the article because I actually kind of think it's trying to capture something about Terrence himself. Because as we are going to see, again, thinking about which face to put on, that's just one of the many things that he thinks about all the time. The next couple of paragraphs basically sort of, tell his story. From growing up, where his dad murdered someone, stabbed them to death in the line to see Santa at a department store.
Oh God, that's gonna fuck you up.
And then, but now his daddy was here next to him, says the person writing the article, saying to him, "You see that curly motherfucker right there? That little redhead motherfucker right there? You love him because the only person that's going to be there no matter what happens in your life is that little motherfucker."
Who's he referring to?
Himself. To Terrence. He's referring to Terrence. Howard's never forgotten those words, as I don't think you would if they were said to you right after your father had murdered Father Christmas, reminding me of our own wonderful foray into the idea in The Return. So, at one time, he was going to be a big movie star, having built his reputation on films like Crash and Hustle and Flow, and his bank account with movies like Iron Man, for which he was paid $3.5 million, more than any other cast member, including RDJ. But word started to leak out about Howard being difficult on set. As well, women began speaking out about his temper. He soon found himself reduced to $40,000 a movie. A humble $40,000 a movie.
Can't imagine.
When all that stuff went down about me, you're not in any bargaining position, he says. You're shunned. You're persona non grata. Mm-hmm. In response, the formerly red-headed little motherfucker did what he had to do. He continued to love himself by buying scissors, wire, magnets, and vast numbers of sheets of plastic. He had a theory. It might seem crazy. It may even be crazy. But a long time ago, he'd gotten hold of this notion that 1 times 1 doesn't equal 1.
Okay.
But 2.
Right.
He began writing down his logic in a language of his own devising that he calls Terryology. He wrote forward and backward with both his right and left hands, sometimes using symbols he made up that looked foreign, if not alien, to keep his ideas secret until they could be patented. In 2013, he got married again to an LA restaurateur named Mira Pack, and the two would spend up to 17 hours a day cutting shapes out of the plastic and joining them together into various objects meant to demonstrate not only his 1x1 theory, but many others as well.
Like, I need to know more about all of these theories. I think I've heard this 1x1 thing somewhere.
I'm glad that you asked. I am going to come on to it. I'll go another paragraph deep, and then we'll get
at the moment, just to like bring you into where I'm at. It's the thing is not even the theory, but how the theory relies on scissors, twine, and plastic shapes that is particularly fascinating.
The theory doesn't rely on those things.
His proof?
It's his proof doesn't rely on them either.
Okay,
I've got his proof. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Wow,
we've got the proof here.
It's
huge. It's groundbreaking stuff. Here's the proof that I'll give you a small preview of. Is my analysis of the proof, which is 4 whole pages of A4, is
in like maths.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, some of it in maths. Not really, but a little bit. His attempt at it. But the main thing is that he seems to have got it confused with adding.
He was looking at the times from a slight angle.
Yeah, just from the side. But don't you worry, because it's, as they say, it's not just that theory.
Okay.
He's got others. Howard backs away from the mirror, returns to the living room. The place is filled with his fantastical plastic assemblages. They bear a similarity to building blocks, but the shapes are infinitely more complex, in 2 dimensions and 3, tied together by copper wire or held in place by magnets. There are hemispheres, cubes, tetrahedrons, and flighty wings. Some of the objects are as small as mice. There's a callback. Others are as big as fire hydrants. Some are hanging, some freestanding. A few larger ones lit from the inside with LED twinkle stars. They are gorgeous and otherworldly. He has no name for them. They just are. He loves them just as much as he loves himself and his infant son, Kirin, spelled with a Q, who is sleeping nearby and will one day inherit US patent 2015-0079-872A1. Systems and methods for enhanced building block applications, among others.
What?
He says he quit smoking cigarettes. Taking a seat not far from Kirin, he says, anything you do against yourself is an attack against the people you care about.
True.
Brackets. Later on, he will admit to sneaking a cigarette here and there.
That's fine.
Pack is here too, tending to the child. Howard is looking at her now and saying, when you meet your one, it's completely balanced. I don't have any greater authority than she does. It's the only thing really that works. She smiles. Now, here's the thing. A couple of months after this, they did divorce.
Damn.
But in 2018, they did get engaged to remarry again.
Okay, that's always a good sign.
There you go. But I just do want you to hold on to his quote there about it being completely balanced.
Yeah.
Because that will come back. Now, I can sense that you're champing at the bit, as it were.
This author is really fucking, putting me on edge, because they talked about all the plastic assemblages, and then they're going into all this relationship stuff, and my interest is completely in the former and completely not in the latter. So I'm just fascinated by all his ideas.
Yeah, so his ideas, there's more than I thought I'd be able to find, but less than I'd like to be able to find.
Well, I guess if they're this good, you can't just be posting them everywhere.
No, exactly. Well, and like you say, he's developed his own language.
Yeah,
but he has claimed that he's going to share some of them.
On the show?
With us.
That's
right
huge
now. I've got him on the other line. He's ready and waiting to come on. So I found a link to his Twitter account.
Right.
And let's see.
Done.
On November 1st, 2017, he posted a tweet. This is the proof to the world of science and mathematics that 1 × 1 = 2.
Okay.
Like I say, it's four pages long. And it is pretty involved.
Right.
Okay.
Well received?
Not by Twitter.
But that's how you'd expect it to be like. That
not
would
by
be,
Twitter.
For all of the, the absolute madness that kicked off when Galileo started making his claims, those pale into comparison compared to these fundaments of Terryology, which would shake the very foundation of what could be up to 2 worlds that we continually inhabit.
Mathematics and science.
Yeah.
First and foremost, let us ask the most obvious question. Is this a finished equation? Yes or no? The answer is no.
Oh.
Let us start our forensic audit there. Brackets, it is an incomplete equation. Why?
What's you referring to? What is?
1 × 1 = 2.
Okay. Oh, it's not.
No, sorry. He's referring to 1 × 1 = 1. He's saying that's an unfinished equation.
Right.
The finished version is 1 times 1 equals 2.
Okay, that's begging the question, I feel.
Why might it not be complete, Isaac? You know mathematics.
Well, I think it's because he wants it to equal 2 and it doesn't, so he's going to just do some bullshit to it until it does equal 2, such as change times to plus, or just maybe make it 1 times 1 plus 1.
You're actually really not far away,
really?
To be honest. The reason why it's incomplete is because it's not even on both sides.
Oh, and no, they do have to be. That's why E equals MC squared is wrong, because there's more shit after the equals.
Than there is on the other side. Yes, nature desires action, but demands equilibrium. Therefore, in order for an equation to be finished / completed, both sides of the equation must be equally balanced.
Oh.
Yet in the case of 1 times 1 equals 1, we have an unfinished equation, because we have 2 1s on one side of the equation and 1 1 on the other side of the equation.
I see now, yes.
So...
This is also proof of so many other... It's proof of just everything in maths being wrong, right? Like, any x plus y equals one thing. Like, isn't it just a proof that addition always doesn't work?
Well, probably.
Yeah.
But don't you worry, because...
If you add 2 numbers and get one number,
it's okay if it's addition. It's okay if it's addition.
Okay. Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah, sorry. I think because you're not thinking of the associative and commutative laws.
Fuck! You've got me. I super wasn't.
There you go. You didn't even.
I'll own up.
See, you didn't mention it, and it wasn't even there behind the eyes. There's just some amazing sentences in here. I mean, I can't.
I will be reading this whole thing.
Yeah, I cannot read it all on here because it is too boring, and I kind of believe that not even you will read all of it.
I promise. I'm fascinated. Because it's
too. It is just the same thing for 4 pages.
That's good.
The main thing is that he's like, there's 2 1s on one side, but only 1 1 on the other.
Is that? Can I just check? Is that the only point?
Sort of, yeah.
Like keep making.
He says, remember the basic laws of common sense. If A times B equals C, then C must be some product of A and B. Yet in order for 1 times 1 to equal 1, the value of either A or B has to be missing from the final product of C.
False.
Let's not jump the gun just yet, he says. Let's try and add 1 to both sides of the equation. So he adds 1. He's got 1 times 1 equals 1 written there.
Yeah.
Underneath the first one, he's written plus 1.
Yeah.
I bet
he has. I saw that coming.
Underneath the C, he's written plus 1. So the associative and commutative laws, then he says, shows that 1 plus, open brackets, 1 times 1 equals 2. Therefore, 3 equals 2.
Oh, fuck.
Which it doesn't, because even in his version, it would just be 2. So then 1 is added to itself 1 time and you get 2. Now add the 1 to the left side of the equation, you also get the plus 1 to the right side of the equation. It gives you an answer 3 equals 2. And that doesn't look like the balanced equation that we were looking for, does it?
True.
Which is the sort of sass that's been missing from most of the maths I've been doing.
Haven't seen it a lot.
As a maths teacher, I'm going to be bringing not the actual claim.
No, you may as well.
But I'll be bringing...
Just introduce it.
You know what? I don't need to, because as Terence himself claims later on, this is the last generation of children who will be taught that 1 times 1 equals 1.
Because of this
Because of his theory, yeah. Now, I was a little disappointed, because I was hoping that it would be something a little more involved, especially given that it was supposed to be his own code and he'd written it forwards and backwards with left and right hands. I was hoping for something like the deep magic. Yeah.
Are you disappointed that this is I think what it sounds like to me is that as someone, you're like a math professional, you're disappointed that he's kind of owning you at your own game. Like he's come into the math world and he's blown it apart.
He's gotten rid of all the mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, and he's cut to the quick of maths.
Yeah.
Quick maths.
I was disappointed, and you'll notice that I used the past tense there, because then I got to page 3, where the main thing is that, well, old Terence, he thinks that there's something fishy going on here. He thinks it's weird that, like, it's fallen on his shoulders.
It is weird. He's super right about that. Like, that is the weirdest thing, that all of these math magicians have fucking they've just ruined it, and they've left it to Terence to fix their problems.
So he basically ends the mathematical part with a call to the elementary schools, middle schools and high schools, the nursery school teachers and the kindergarten teachers, upon basically everyone, to just get rid of this false statement of 1 times 1 equaling 1.
Yeah. Does he link to some resources that can help? Like he's got some worksheets?
Not quite.
Okay.
Here's what he goes on to say, though. After thoughtful reflection and literally thousands of hours of observation, coupled with 5 decades of deep and contemplative work upon the subject, it has brought me to the inevitable 52.
Wow.
To the inevitable conclusion that this false concept must have been the brainchild of a godlike figure of some sort, someone whom the people possibly credited for giving them their multiplication table and their geometry, a gift that set that civilization apart from the rest of the world, a multiplication table and system of calculating that would enable that civilization to rule the known world from way back in the late Egyptian dynasty till the Medes and the Persians brought a sudden end to their way of life. Some call them the Anunnaki, the sky people, whomever they were that gave that naive generation some 6,000 years ago a multiplication table and a flat view of universal geometrical.
Sorry, of what?
Geometrical.
Oh, geometrical.
Sick.
Is that a place?
Yeah. That gave that poor misguided people a false axiom upon which to build their world. A false axiom that would behave almost as a bumper for our infantile-like species, a tutor, as it were. A false axiom that would allow for a measure of growth and productivity for that civilization, but would inevitably lead to failure and its inevitable collapse.
Wow. So it was sky people who tricked ancient Arabic mathematicians. Is that the theory?
Yeah, they came down 6,000 years ago.
Specifically.
They came down from the sky.
Just a flyby?
I assume not permanently.
1 + 1!
Did you say times?
But they were gone. And the first abacus was built in
I mean, I haven't seen them about, so I assume they haven't stayed for unless they're, hiding among us like the superheroes might.
So this is a really interesting claim. If I may just really dive into it for a moment.
Please do.
Math seems to me the kind of thing that from like an epistemological standpoint, if it were based on one false axiom, and then, so, if it were just our starting principle that 1 + 1, or what is it, 1 × 1 equals...
1 × 1 equals 2.
And if we were incorrectly just saying 1 × 1 equals 1, then surely you would just define everything else incorrectly as well, relative to what the sky people were lying about.
Yeah.
Such that it would still work.
Well,
and it does.
To be honest, it seems to.
It does. Like, you can use it to check stuff. You can use it to, like, encrypt and decrypt stuff. So it's unclear to me what Terence is suggesting is the ultimate problem. Is it just that we were lied to by the sky people?
It's about pride.
Because if so, fair enough.
You don't want to.
I don't want to be fucking lied
sat
to
up there
by
chuckling away.
The
Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki up there.
Yeah, and they
laughing at us every day.
Laughing at me as I sit there enjoying my geometrical.
They're like, what year do they think it is on Earth?
Yeah, 2018. It's 2020. That's silly cunts.
But yeah, it's because it's not a practical issue by the very nature of what maths is, unless he's claiming that, numbers are some real natural phenomenon that we're objectively wrong about. It's just interesting that this really is just a matter of truth and of the feeling that we're deviating from what is intended as mathematical reality. It's a noble crusade.
It is, yeah.
Such a word.
Should we see where he goes with it?
Please.
He says, unfortunately for the latter generations, thou would eventually come to inherit this once thriving Mediterranean metropolis that includes, the not so lucky entire world.
Hey, did it say in there as well?
Yeah.
That's cool. You don't see that in math papers.
No, very, very seldom. Little finger snaps as well. Now, for the last 5,000 or plus years, our ancestors enslaved our thinking with that dogma for generations upon generations, leading down to our great-grandparents, and who in like manner indoctrinated their children, who in turn would help through the newly formed system called, scare quotes, tradition, to propagate this
the newly formed system of tradition is such an amazing oxymoron of a concept.
Tradition got introduced about
this
one generation ago.
Tradition. Yeah, we should start doing it forever.
We should keep it.
That's really funny.
They've always been doing it, really.
So good.
To propagate this false truth to the rest of the world. Because of their wrong approach to the rules of multiplication, their systems would all likewise eventually fail because they were all built upon a faulty foundation, one suffering the damages from being dependent on the principle of, quote, implied predictability of loss. When 1 × 1 equals 1, it is implied that 50% of the potential will be lost at the initial contact.
What does that mean, Terence?
I think what he means is, how there's that, idea, he obviously doesn't quite mean this, but I think it's along the same lines.
Yeah.
There's that idea in computing about how, energy loss in computation is done through deleting stuff because it's all binary and lots of it is yes no gates.
Right.
you've got to send in 2 and you get out 1, and so 1 is lost, and you just got to like erase that and get rid of it. And I think he's like, well, if 1 times 1 equals 1, then what that means is half of everything we've got will just completely be obliterated. And so that's
we're
why
only reaching half as much as we could ever achieve intellectually.
And it's kind of diminishing returns, and that's why civilizations will fall.
I guess there are some hidden assumptions there about, like...
Go on.
Well, no, I mean... Far be it from me.
Why have you written a paper?
I've not studied Terryology.
Have you written a paper? Have you done 4 pages about the Anunnaki?
Right, well, I didn't even know about it.
Well, there you go.
Today,
and yet you're gonna nitpick Terence's hard work. You start off with 2 values on the one side, and in the process of multiplying, one of the values...
Yeah, I remember this bit.
One of the values goes missing, and nobody cares what happens to it.
He's been putting up posters.
Yeah,
he keeps trying to bother the people that put the children's pictures on milk.
Yeah.
This is what we really need. Just the number 1. Have you seen him?
If I saw a number 1 on milk,
I'd be certain that we'd lost some deep fabric of reality.
It is a false axiom, he loves that phrase, that unfortunately for us has become the very cornerstone of our misunderstandings concerning math and the nature of our universe. An untruth told to a naive people by someone that they just trusted so much.
Why did they
that no one ever thought to question the accuracy and longevity of the system of calculating that was being shared. Even now, almost 6,000 years later, why is it that only I, in the history of recorded history, has ever asked this question concerning an unbalanced equation? An unbalanced equation that has masqueraded itself as the first truth of mathematics for more than 6,000 years.
But that would not be the
when
first
it could be
truth.
Very well be...
You can't start
Sorry,
with that.
I can't handle this sentence. When it could very well be the worst lie ever told in the history of man, with potentially the worst and longest potential consequences.
Wow.
But the thing is, what have they been?
He doesn't... I've been waiting for him to point out what they are.
What?
But it sounds like we're all... Much like is often the case with conspiracies, you're just supposed to, at some point, kind of accept, there is a reason. We all know what it is. We don't need to hammer it out. But we all recognise some kind of spiritual dearth that stems from the lack of equilibrium in this unfinished equation.
It's so funny that, the simplest and possibly most understandable sum in the whole world is being paraded out as the worst lie ever told in the history of man.
It's crazy.
Goodness me, a lie that continues to be propagated by those that worship that false concept and profit from the loss of others.
How's that?
Doesn't say who it is, but
we know. We know.
Why someone found it, scare quotes, necessary to put a cap on that Mesopotamian civilization's potential for advancement, I will not speculate. I don't know what that means.
He's claimed that they did really well though, earlier, didn't he?
I don't know what he means. Perhaps it was the best thinking of the time, which is such a damning with faint praise thing. As to where we would have advanced to if we had not been misled by this false statement, again, it is of no benefit to speculate. Nevertheless, we are in the here and now, and we must hit the reset button and do a full about-face concerning our approach to mathematics.
Okay.
In light of this exercise, I feel that it is necessary for us to throw out the false positives ad erroneous results. I assume he means and.
Yeah.
1 times 1 equals 1 is an equation that predicts a negatively discharging universe without the ability to overcome the radiational expanse of magnetism, because 1 would have to have a negative discharge in order for it not to bond with a second 1, and a universe made up of all discharging particles would never assemble into molecules and other more complex integrated system. 1 would, by necessity, have to be a positive integer in order for the gravitational and centripetal effect of electricity to accumulate atoms of low potential together into systems of high potential and ultimately build this wondrous universe abundant in dynamic energy. Now, here's the bit at the very, very end. This is the final couple of lines from the thesis. Or a treatise almost. That I think really spells out just how fundamentally Terence has got multiplication and addition just a little scrambled. When 1 times 1 equals 2, we have a balanced equation where the laws of universal equilibrium and the conservation of universal energy remains intact. Therefore, 1 times 1 equals 1 must be written as 1 times 1 equals 2. And then 1 times 2 equals 3. 1 times 3 equals 4. 1 times 4 equals 5.
The knock-on effect is just it is just called do addition but with an X.
It's called
rather than a plus.
move the whole thing up.
That's so funny.
And he goes.
How long does he carry on doing?
Well, he gets to 1 times 1 equals 17. 1 times 17 equals 18, and then says infinity and beyond.
First Buzz Lightyear quote in a serious and world-shaking maths paper as well.
Yeah.
What does he think numbers are? Like that whole section about how if we thought that 1 times 1 equaled 1, the universe itself could never have happened. It betrays a very confusing concept of like when
he thinks
the order
a number
of these things
that there are just ones floating about. Yeah. One perhaps my favourite comment in the replies was someone who said, "This literally says, quote, sky people gave an ancient civilization a multiplication table." Come on, man. Come on.
We can lay a lot of flaws at the Anunnaki's feet, but they never fuck around with
I understand why you got thrown off Iron Man now. Terrence, you just made me feel less stupid about being bad at math.
He wouldn't sign up to Iron Man 2 unless they changed it to be called Iron Man 3.
Yeah. Listen, the second would always. There was this was posted to Reddit a few years ago on Not the Onion, of course, which was well, it wasn't quite that. It was actually an independent article that is, from all I can gather, a summary of the Rolling Stone article that we're reading. And there were just people on there who were trying to like explain it to him, but then also explain to each other where they think he'd gone wrong. One guy just said, "One group of one, motherfucker. It's no more advanced than that."
One group of one, motherfucker. That's some good maths teaching.
It's very good. And then, draw one circle on a piece of paper 1 time. You have 1 circle, not 2.
But if that were true, then the electrons would be negatively discharged.
Oh, we'd have a completely discharging universe.
You've got to think of it that way.
And it would subscribe to the predictability of loss. And we'd be going on forever and ever and ever.
That would suck.
I did check, just because I found, literally as I was opening this up and we were starting the episode, that a tiny thing I'd missed in a quotation that I pulled. Which is about how he said he was going to put something up on YouTube.
I wish he would.
You'll be pleased to know that he has. We can watch that.
How long is it? I hope it's so.
Well, there's one that's 20 minutes long. There's one that's an hour.
Yeah.
Then from 3 years ago, there is a full 50-minute Q&A at the Oxford Union.
What on earth?
Terrence Howard, All Life is Energy.
Okay.
But there's one that we're going to come on to in a bit, which is about him sharing his innermost thoughts on the Emmy red carpet from a few years ago.
Cool.
But let's return to the article a little bit, because there is more to it than just the
simple matter of
the simple matter of him being entirely wrong about everything. So, all my checks from Fox are being held for garnishment because of my ex. I'm broke as can be, but my wife, she did well for herself, so she's covered us. This place, she's renting it. I'm suffering. There's nothing worse than being a broke movie star, he says.
That's so true.
Pax says they're soon going to be buying a house of their own in Winnetka. Obviously, they did not.
Damn.
The suburbs, Howard says, as soon as they free up my money. It's always been a hard road for me. I run into bad luck, but I run into good luck too. So it's even Steven right now. He nods at Pac. I've got a good wife.
Oh.
And so it would seem. But you never know what you're going to get with a guy like Howard, or which one of those 432 faces he is allowed to come out and talk, or what's behind his smile, or his words. Even a simple word like wife, for instance. A few weeks later, it comes out that he and Pac had separated in mid-2014, with her filing for divorce earlier this year, citing irreconcilable differences, and a month from now, their divorce will be final.
Damn.
Plus, in a court document signed in March, Pac stated that she hadn't lived with Sarah Howard since August 2014, and yet here they are, looking at each other somewhat fondly, and letting no one else be any the wiser.
So they were just doing it for the interview.
They were
That's
indeed.
Cool.
So he talks about how after he started working, people were always were coming up. His studio execs were calling him saying, "You're going to be the next Denzel," and it kind of looked like for a while maybe he would. And then he talks about how he got this reputation of being difficult on set, which mostly seemed to be about how he didn't from his perspective, he wouldn't deliver a line in the way they wanted to.
Yeah.
And then months later, they said that he was really difficult. They seem to have slightly different experience as to.
Well, there's two sides to every story.
one times
least.
one
Sorry,
size.
there's 3 sides to every story is what I mean.
So like he got this job on the show Empire because someone that he worked with, Taraji P. Henson, who thought her co-star in Hustle and Flow was just the ticket. They came to me and I said, the only person I'll do it with is Terrence.
Fair enough.
So she basically got him the job, said that it was about this like vibe, and only she and Howard had that vibe. Mm-hmm. Cool. As for Howard's success as Lucius, he's playing it cool. I'm just trying to pay my bills, he says. I'm looking forward to this show running its course. If I make a decent amount of money from it, I'll retire. He seems to be wanting a simpler life, the kind you find in Winnetka, one free of the temptations of Hollywood. The problem with this business, he says, you lose yourself. Another problem. Howard has a temper. He's been escorted off a plane for unruly behaviour. He's punched out strangers in a restaurant. He's said to have knocked at least 2 of his women around, most recently his ex-wife Michelle Gent, who after a 2013 trip to Costa Rica with Howard was photographed with a black eye. She said Howard did it. He either denies the allegations or shades the circumstances or has outright justifications, which is a powerful trio of things to have all at once.
Trifecta.
About the same incident.
Did this article describe that as having knocked 2 of his women about?
Yes,
That's a strange use of language.
It seems to be like one of those things where they've sort of like done the interview and then are like, oh, if we're writing this, we kind of have to mention, oh, actually, it's much worse than we thought.
Yeah.
So now we've got to like kind of play it off a little bit.
Yeah. Not great, Rolling Stone.
He is contrite about one of them, though. About hitting his first wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Does
so
that
that
carry
one is
forwards?
Yeah, she was talking to me real strong, and I lost my mind and slapped her in front of the kids. He said her lawyer said it was a closed fist, but even slapping her was wrong. So he's like throwing his hands up there.
Well, that was the problem.
And what happened in Costa Rica? She was trying to mace me. He said, and you can't see anything, so all you do is try and bat someone away. I think something caught her, but I wasn't trying to hit her. That, I think, probably comes in the justifications part.
Yes, I think so.
Of his trifecta. So it then talks about how this incident in a restaurant was like, he apparently was trying to look and see what like was on the menu. Right. Someone accused him of like butting in. It turned into an altercation and he punched the guy to the floor and screamed at the woman. Hit the woman. Sorry about that. And then it turns out that that's basically the exact same thing that caused his dad to stab this guy in the line for Santa. He was like looking at something. Someone accused him of butting in, and this sentence got me. The crime made national news and became known as, quote, the Santa line slaying, which is.
How did they spell slaying? Tell me immediately.
Unfortunately,
what?
With an
they dropped the ball.
This is a national. It's worse
tragedy.
than the Merry Pringles.
That's so sad.
So yeah, it's I mean, like it sounds like he has had like a ludicrously hard life growing up, and like there's lots of reasons why these things are happening, but also it seems that he's entirely unpenitent, and also
don't need to be just punching.
You really don't need to be beating up women, or indeed anyone. So he talks about how what's this? My daddy taught me never take the vertebrae out of your back or the base out of your throat. I ain't raising sheep, I raised men. Stay a man. But being a man comes with a curse, because it's not a society made for men to flourish anymore.
False.
Everything is androgynous, you know. The more successful men now are the effeminate, which is another attitude that has gotten him heat.
Oh, not that he surprised me. This got him into trouble.
I know, it's amazing. He picks up one of his intricate plastic Watsits and holds it to his eyes. Like with these things, he says. In those 4 years where I was shunned and walked away from everything, look at what I've created. But I was not trying to make this when I made it. I was just trying to find the 4 forces. So I took 4 planes and put them together where they fit naturally. An equilateral triangle. And it created a circle, a triangle, and a square.
What?
And from there, everything else was created just following my hands, leading to a good place.
He took the 4 forces and made 4 planes that he stuck together to make a triangle.
An equilateral
That's
triangle.
Confusing.
Yep.
That then it became a circle.
He doesn't know the names of the shapes.
Okay.
He does not know.
He's thinking names of actual shapes.
Thinking, I'm sure, of like a tetrahedron.
Oh, okay.
Right? He doesn't really describe things in 3D shapes
Fair enough.
very well. So like this one. Since I was a child of 3 or 4, he says, I was always wondering, you know, why does a bubble take the shape of a ball?
That's a great question.
Why not a triangle or a square? I figured it out. If Pythagoras was here to see it, he would lose his mind. Einstein too. Tesla.
They definitely knew the answer to that question.
For
sure.
Listen, but had they created it in plastic?
That's true.
Using solder and copper wire.
They never got to see a movie star ruin his life by making non-stop plastic sheets on
They did not.
In between outrage.
Now, he's got a little bit of beef with Pythagoras, has Terence.
Who hasn't?
I'm switching devices. Look at this. I'm going to my phone because I watched a brief video earlier of him on the red carpet at the Emmys, talking about some of his innermost thoughts, and I've transcribed some of it for you here now. So he basically says that he's going to quit acting.
What was the question? Do you know?
The question was about that. They were like, "Oh, you said that you like are gonna after this sort of like 12 episode run is done, you're gonna step away. Is that forever or for a while?" And
do you have any thoughts about Pythagoras? Did they ask?
They didn't mention that, but it comes in naturally. It comes in naturally. What he says is basically that I've moved on from that. I don't want to. I've spent too many years pretending. And why would I dance for tips when I've been doing all this?
Yeah, I mean, this does sound more important.
Then he says, and I quote, "I've made some discoveries in my own personal life with the science that, Pythagoras was searching for. I was able to open up the flower of life properly and find the real wave conjugations that we've been looking for 10,000 years. Why would I continue acting?" That's a big claim, the interviewer says. "What do you intend to do?" Well, let me put it this is directly after that question, right? What do you intend to do? Well, let me put it this way. All energy in the universe is expressed in motion. All motion is expressed in waves. All waves are curves. So where do the straight lines come from to make the platonic solids? There are no straight lines. So when I took the flower of life and I opened it up properly, I found the only way of conjugation that exposed the in-between spaces. And it's the thing that holds us all together.
Right.
At which point the interviewer says, "And you're going to be sharing that."
This person is so composed and non-thrown.
It was amazing. There was two of them, one either side with a microphone. This guy says, "And you're going to be sharing that." And he says, "I'm going to be sharing that on Tuesday when I receive my star." He was getting a Hollywood Walk of Fame star. "I'm going to be able to prove that gravity is only an effect and not a force. And I'm going to be doing something on YouTube where I show how you can create Saturn and build the Milky Way galaxy without gravity." Right. And at which point, the other presenter, the woman, she just leans in and she goes, "Now you mentioned there you're a Hollywood star."
What a pro.
It's amazing.
Can you imagine how annoyed Terence would be? Imagine imagine for a moment this isn't all absolutely deranged bullshit, and you were actually, as an actor, you were like, "I'm stepping away. I've actually, I'm doing a PhD in something.
I'm going to
important.
change the world."
And they were like, "Okay, well, I heard you say PhD, but brought it back to some Hollywood thing. It would be very frustrating." So I can only imagine that he didn't take it well.
He didn't, but I think he took it in his stride, as it were, just because he realised that maybe this wasn't the place. You don't want to waste your time talking to people who are beneath you.
He's teased the ideas as well, which is quite cool. He's used that platform to get them the kind of launch pad that they deserve.
He says about how Pythagoras would lose his mind, and then he shakes his head at the miracle of it all, his eyes opening wide, a smile beginning to trace itself like he's expecting applause or an award, and all you can do is nod your head and try to follow along. He just seems so convinced that he's right, and that he's about to change the world. Mm-hmm. This is the last century that our children will ever have been taught that 1 times 1 is 1, he says. Wow. They won't have to grow up in ignorance. 20 years from now, they'll know that 1 times 1 equals 2. We're about to show a new truth, the true universal math, and the proof is in these pieces. I've created the pieces that make up the motion of the universe. We work on them about 17 hours a day. She cuts and puts on the crystals. Ages. I do the main work of soldering them together. They tell the truth from within. So,
that sounds like the easier bit.
I proper cackled when I read that. That is amazing. And it's revealed later on. After a while, Kieran has had enough of these goings on and begins to cry. Howard lifts him out of his crib and wanders down the hallway. Pac watches them go. She says she first met Howard in the middle of the day at an LA restaurant where she was having lunch with an old boss. He marched up to the table and said to the man, "I don't know if she's your wife or girlfriend, but she's absolutely stunning." She said, "That's very bold of you." He said, "Well, only a tiger can approach a tiger." 3 weeks later, they were married. Isn't that crazy? She says today.
It super is.
And we have an amazing connection. But I mean, he's not perfect. Doesn't do the dishes. Doesn't cook.
Spends 17 hours soldering shapes.
Doesn't lift a finger.
Imagine being this woman and one of your friends is like, "Oh my God, are you dating that movie star, Terrence Howard? What's it like?" Yeah, and the moment of behind her eyes, just a flicker of, "I spend 17 hours a day making shapes."
You've preempted the next couple of sentences. Doesn't lift a finger. I probably leave him 30 times a month. She laughs and goes on. He's so selfish. But, you know, he didn't have much of a childhood. It was difficult for him being picked on and bullied all the time.
Oh.
We don't have a normal life. In our 2 years together, I've only gone to restaurants with him 2 or 3 times. We've never been to the supermarket together. We've never been to the movies. I've never gotten a gift from him. Never.
We've made 15,000 shapes.
And then every minute that he has free, it's to do this. She gestures at some of Howard's thingamajigs, tilting her head questioningly. I help him, cutting, drawing, and putting things together. I've developed a slight form of agoraphobia lately. I never go out. I have no friends here. I feel like Rapunzel, you know, stuck in a penthouse with my baby, just like Rapunzel was.
Stuck with all these shapes and babies.
Soon Howard strolls back in.
That's awful.
Kieran asleep in his arms. You asked some good questions of my wife. She going to get us into trouble? I say, not too bad. No, not too bad. That's like a doctor with a big ass needle saying this isn't going to hurt.
Oh, God.
So he talks about how he sort of launches then into a story about how his mum got pregnant with me when she was 15.
Uh-huh.
He was going to be her second kid. She was on her way to the abortion clinic when they hit a red light, and she took that as a sign that she wasn't supposed to. So he's been there. Apparently at birth, his skin was so yellow the doctors thought he had jaundice and whisked him away to a darkened room for 3 days.
Uh-huh. Is that how you treat jaundice? Just being in the dark?
Yeah, well, it's certainly how they used to. I think now it's IV.
Interesting. That does sound better.
I could be wrong. So inside an incubator, inside a dark room, the first 3 days of my life. So soon after his father returned from prison, his parents divorced. The family had gone from poor to broke to shattered. So his mum moved to LA to try and be an actress while his dad stayed put, and he sort of like flitted between the two of them. Now, here's the bit that I think is just an insane thing to mention in this article, which, I mean, it's, if he tells you this, you have to put it in, right? This is one place where I'm not going to blame the person writing the article, but I just find it such a fascinating window into Terrence that he just brought this up. Seemingly apropos of nothing, because he talked about how he got beaten up a bit and then his uncle taught him how to box. And people didn't think that he could defend himself because he was a bit of a pretty boy. His words, not mine. But then he would. He first took an interest in sex in grade school. In the ghetto, things happen a lot quicker, he says. But by the time he was 16, he'd sworn it off. And when he fell in love with this one girl, he refused to give her what she wanted. Quote, and then she ended up having a gangbang and called me laughing with her friends on speakerphone. And I was crying because of what had happened to my girl, not knowing that this was something she wanted. Before Mira, I always picked the wrong women.
Wow. That is quite a revelation.
Feels like it's one of those things that's been hanging with him for a little longer than he might like there. Yeah. You might be wondering about therapy. We'll come to that later.
Doesn't need it.
Oh, don't you worry. When he was in high school, nerves in his cranium began to malfunction and paralysed the right side of his face, Bell's palsy. He says doctors gave him a 95% chance of it staying frozen like that forever. His right eye wouldn't close, so he had to tape it shut at night. Determined to do something about the situation, he started applying electrical shocks to his face. He says he cut the wires off his dad's electric razor, attached one end to the fuse box in the basement and pressed the other to his skin. I did that every day for 5 months, and then I felt the slightest little twitch inside, he says. He recovered fully, pretty much. It was around this time he began experimenting with his handwriting. The right side of my face behaved in a different way from the left, so I thought maybe that's also true of my hands. I was right-handed, so I started writing with my left hand, and then I reversed the direction and started writing backwards with both hands.
I mean, when he puts it like that, I mean, there is a devastating logic to everything he's doing.
Yeah, everything falls into place.
Yeah,
like,
it all makes sense internally, but externally it does seem it's unclear. There's a big why underlining basically
every single thing here. Like, I just think that a part of the thing that does annoy me about this article is, I suppose, how sort of mundanely it's been written. When if you turned up to interview someone and they just start talking about, oh yeah, well I cut my dad's razor up and I went to the basement and I plugged it into my face. With, like he says, next to a pile of what must be at this point millions of plastic shapes that he thinks outstrips Pythagoras. Yeah. Like, you'd think that there would just be something a little bit more. I think I'd be sharing this every day if I'd written this.
I think I would have made it into like a more than one article.
Yeah.
For sure.
So after high school, he attended the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn studying chemical engineering until he got into an argument with a professor. about what 1 times 1 equals.
No.
How can it equal 1, he said. If 1 times 1 equals 1, that means that 2 is of no value because 1 times 1 states 1 times 1 itself has no effect. 1 times 1 equals 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. So what's the square root of 2? Should be 1, but we're told it's 2. No, we're not. And that cannot be. This did not go over well, he says, and he soon left school. I mean, you can't conform when you know innately that something is wrong.
I suppose that's true. I mean, you've got to stay true to your principles, and it sounds like he has.
So he got a job at Pan Am, and which allowed him to fly to LA for cheap.
Nice.
So he could hand out resumes that were apparently full of sham acting distinctions.
Good.
So yeah, he then like got a part in like a Cosby Show episode, but his bit was cut, and then it was another bit more TV work, and then finally into like a couple of movies. And then that was sort of largely it. Then there's the bit about Iron Man that I told you earlier.
Yeah.
Basically, he says that he got Robert Downey Jr. hired. Oh. That's his claim. He heard they weren't interested in RDJ because of his past drug problems, but Howard told them he'd take a $1 million pay cut if they auditioned Downey and hired him. Marvel Studios disputes Howard's version of Downey's hiring and the alleged salary cut, saying Howard played no part in getting Downey the job.
Oh, that's quite a strong disputation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like, it was a bit different.
Oh, well, it's not quite hard. No, it's not that.
Nothing.
It's false.
Robert was so thankful and says Howard. Come time to make Iron Man 2, however, the producers went to Howard's agent, told him they were cutting Howard's part down and wanted a salary reduction. As Howard recalls it, his agent said, "Fuck you," and slammed down the phone. By the next day, Don Cheadle had been hired.
Wow.
And no, he says, I called Robbie and I was like, look, man, leaving messages with his assistants. Called him at least 17 times that day and 21 the next. And finally left a message saying, look, man, I need the help that I gave you. Never heard from him. And guess who got the millions I was supposed to get? He got the whole franchise. So I've actually given him $100 million, which ends up being $100 million loss from me trying to look after somebody. But, to this day, I would do the same thing. It's just my nature.
That's nice, though.
Then again, it's also in his nature to say things like, I don't talk about my ex-wife because I don't like to talk about negative things. And later on, call out to Pac, hey, honey, where's the blackmail CD?
Oh.
So at this point, I'm not going to read through this in full because it sounds really horrendous. But basically what happens is that he opens up a laptop, puts in a CD that contains a secretly recorded phone call that he secretly recorded from one of his ex-wives, where she is saying that he needs to pay up what she's owed, or she's going to release naked photos and videos and shit like that. And he basically makes the guy sit there and listen to the whole thing. It goes on for an almost 13 endless weird brain frying minutes.
He's very open man, isn't he?
Yeah, with Howard keeping his cool throughout, both on the recording and in the present moment. What he wants to demonstrate is that she was the pit bull in their relationship. Which, seems like an interesting thing to say. But then what's interesting here is, so basically one of the, sort of divorce settlements, so their 2012 divorce settlement is being rescinded because he played them this tape to the court. But actually at this point, they're still assessing their legal options because it seems like it could go down on appeal. But then obviously until that's the case, there's nothing he can do. His money is still being held and shit like that. So it says, but at the moment, all he could do is glare at the laptop, leaning in toward it, hissing, "You fucking bitch, shut the fuck up, shut the fuck up."
To the recording. But...
Yeah. So afterward, Howard sets himself down on the sofa and looks like he's gulping for air. He once said about himself, the sooner people declare me insane, the sooner I'll be free. So has he ever been to a shrink? Back in the 90s or something. Told me I was crazy, he says.
Oh.
No, he actually told me I had a sex addiction. I said, so what do I do? He said, don't have any sex. And I was like, okay, good. I get you. On any medications? No. I took ayahuasca once. The only answer I got was, keep following your hands.
That's such an amazing punchline to a non-existent joke. I took ayahuasca once. The only answer is keep following your hands.
It's an especially incredible answer to, are you on any medication? Yeah. Well, I took some drugs once and they
essential
that coyote from the fucking Simpsons episode who turned up.
That's very powerful.
Anytime I've ever done anything wrong, it'll sneak back up on me, he says. I mean, right away. So then I'm conscious when I've set booby traps along the way. I figure it's just my walk, but if those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't have this. He seems to me and his son Kieran, his fantastic plastic objects and 1 × 1 = 2, the apartment mirrors he sometimes stands in front of, and even his soon-to-be ex-wife pack. I spent all my time as a kid trying to fit in, he goes on. My uncle said to me, why are you so busy trying to fit in when you were born to stand out? I was 14. He said, you're a young prince, and someday ye shall grow to be an old king. Many years ago, Oprah said to me, your crown is waiting right there. Pick it up and put it on. Right. I remember being in the womb.
Stop, Terence, you don't.
Found comfort there, and have been aware since that moment. As a result of the travesties I've gone through, I've become awakened. I mean, after spending time with me, you can see a good part of my nature. I'm on my own path, and I like the pebbles of my cobblestones, which seems clear enough.
The Pebbles of My Cobblestones is an amazing album, autobiography name.
I think it sounds like a Maeve Binchy
The
sort of
Pebbles
novel.
of My Cobblestone.
Which seems clear enough. There's no stopping him. He's pushing ahead, writing his future forward and backward with both his right and his left, surrounded by symbols only he knows the meaning of, come what may.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, I haven't heard of Terence Howard for years.
Yeah.
You're not
drawing a connection, are you?
No, what I'm wondering is, like, was he silenced? Like, did he do that big announcement at the Hollywood Walk of Fame when he was laid to start?
All the footage was deleted by the CIA.
Yeah, like, this is the thing.
By the Illuminati.
It can't be a coincidence that
by the goddamn Anunnaki.
Exactly. They swooped right down on Hollywood Boulevard.
Plucked the cameras.
Right outside the Chinese theatre, whisked him away to Mathland. But, I mean, it seems like there's, it can't be a coincidence that someone who has been awakened to this extent has seen, the more they realise this, the more shapes he makes. Because the less people have heard of him and the less success he has.
You would think that if someone deliberately torched their own career to be wrong, you'd continue to hear more of them and see them in more movies.
Sorts, yeah.
There was another. I'm annoyed actually. If you want to sort of like give some more ruminations, there was a final quote on here that I think has been lost in a different tab.
I think my main rumination is that I want to know the shapes. It feels like are the central part of what he's up to, and it seems to me like Rolling Stone didn't ever quite get to the core of what those are about.
No, to be honest, I'm hoping that when we watch, it looks like if you watch his videos, then because look, if you look at the thumbnail for this one,
is it shapes?
He's holding a shape.
Oh, they look really nice as well. Like they are nicely made.
They look like a bit like those things you make with. Remember, it was like. What were they called? It was like marbles and then little magnetic sticks that you could like build stuff up with.
But I mean, those are clearly the key to a lot of what he's up to. And so I think it's probably in those that we need to find our answer moving forwards.
Yeah, basically, I don't know why I can't seem to be able to find it now. But there was a point in one of them where he talks about, where it was mentioned that he kept claiming that he had this degree, that he had a PhD in like chemical science and mathematics or something from a particular university, and it turned out that he had like an honorary doctorate of letters from a university that wasn't even able to actually give anyone a PhD at all, which is just like another fantastic like encapsulation of everything that goes on in his mind. That like I've come up with this idea. It's called addition.
It's very good though. I mean, he's clearly like a bright bloke because he got into school to do chemical engineering, right?
Yeah.
Like he can't be an idiot. And the way that he was writing, like he's clearly read the kind of things that he's writing because you could see the attempt to couch it in that vernacular.
Yeah,
of like,
I don't think he's understood very many of them.
No, but he's clearly, I think it's much more interesting that he is actually, from the sound of that, quite smart and has a lot of ideas. It's just that he's also mad.
He's also mad and beats up women.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bad
Those are
combo. Those are two negatives.
Yeah, but the positive is he rediscovered new math.
Yeah.
And we are the last generation.
The positive is
tricks.
two negatives is just 1 × 1 negative.
So
which is not many when you think about it.
Well, that's a very powerful exploration. And I think in true task form, it's a stone that no one had thought to bother turning in quite some time.
In a little while, yeah.
Yeah, so it's good that we're able to shine the light that no one asked for on a subject that no one knew about. Isn't that
a mug? Have you heard one? Isn't that a t-shirt?
Now, nature is not the only thing that desires equilibrium and demands action. In fact, we are as well. One of the ways we demand action is that you leave a review for this very show over at shame.city/Terence TAS, I think.
So shame.city/review.
That's the one. Even more easy and obvious.
Yeah. If you listen to our other show, you could go to shame.city/book review and review that one as well.
And if you don't, I don't know, I can't really get on board with you in a big way because they are very similar in terms of quality and vibe.
Well, yeah, and in terms of personnel.
Yeah, well, they're radically the same in those regards.
Although, let me tell you, people were saying really nice things about the old Big Bad Books on stream yesterday.
So
people were really like...
I think it is good, to be honest. I've reflected on it just now. It is all good so far.
The thing that I said, and just to, big up our own shows while we're doing them, is that I do think since we went to the 2 shows intersecting, the quality of this one has vastly improved.
For sure. Having 2 weeks to plan stuff.
I was going to say the quality of both has improved, but the other one did not exist before.
And therefore it has improved from 0 to 100%.
I like it. That's maths.
That's Terryology.
That's the new math.
But yeah, do check out Big Bad Books. I'm going to be doing something when I work out how to, of like posting an episode of it or a preview in this feed that you're listening to this show from. So that if you haven't bothered checking it out yet from laziness and,
you're forced
and foolishness on your part, then it will automatically wing its way to you and you have no excuse.
And then he's going to find your IP addresses. He's going to come to your homes.
The thing to do would be to go over to shame.city/books. And there you can find some episode shit as well for that other one. That's out every other Sunday. So it's, it fills the gap that the absence of half the TASes has left in your heart. Outside of just podcasts, we are conquering the media landscape more broadly over at twitch.tv/shamecity or shame.city/twitch, where you can find us streaming at the moment, Monday to Thursday at about 9 p.m. UK time. So it's UTC +1 at the moment. We stream all sorts, and we've recently got into puzzle hunts, which is a fun time. We're going to be doing some of that next week.
In true, Shame City form, we've got into them in a way that means we don't have to talk to or engage with anyone else doing the puzzle hunt.
Yes,
just with us and people we know and love.
We're doing them in our own timeline when they have long since finished, and all of the fun and social aspects are swept away. Can
we please? Because the idea of most of them is that you do a bunch of puzzles and it tells you a place to go, and you go there at a certain time, and anyone else who's done that.
Late?
Well, I was saying we should go to them late, but then consistently call up the people and just really bother them. Yeah, we turned up.
What's this, lads?
Don't know where you guys are.
We're the only people to solve it again. But yeah, that's good fun. We play more normal games as well. We don't. I suppose we don't.
No, we don't. Our version of a more normal game is a sort of claymation point and click that looks like it was born in hell.
Yeah, it's very good stuff. But do check that out, shame.city/twitch. We've got a few other things to know about. A Discord, most notably amongst them, which is shame.city/discord. We hang out there day in, day out, answering questions, fielding interviews,
making threads,
brand new threads, and I'll be posting some exclusive behind the scenes pictures of Declan later.
Oh, don't
that he doesn't know.
You might get some exclusive behind the scenes picture of mice. That's for sure.
Anything else I've missed? Twitter, I suppose.
Shame City Gang for the entire Shame City universe.
Yeah,
that's a Shamecast for this show. At Big Bad Books for the other.
Yeah, that's all the main stuff.
That's it. That's all of the stuff, isn't it?
Until the next episode in 2 weeks, or on next Sunday if you pop over to Big Bad Books, where we are really just getting into the meat of Ready Player 2 in a big way. The puzzle speed has ramped up.
It's gone.
We're getting ready to take off to find the Anunnaki themselves. I've been Isaac. You've been.
I've been Declan.
And 1 times 1 always equals 2. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you.